Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and on today's video we're going to be carrying on stripping and checking various parts of the GL1000 Goldwing. What we've got here is the master cylinder for the front brake and obviously the brake lever. I think this is an original part as far as I can tell. They often came with these dots on, which I believe were to signify the fact they'd been checked after assembly. Please correct me if you know different. I've seen these in different colours. Some are just painted. If I turn this one over, it is painted on the back, but then it sort of fades into this, I don't know, bronzy goldy colour, which I've seen some which more slightly more reddy colour as well. So I don't know which ones are original, which ones aren't, whether they just did different colour ones. There's definitely signs of paint on this, where the whole of this at some point was painted. So whether somebody did paint it, I don't know. What I did notice with this was that when I was wheeling the bike around, there was fluid in this, the brakes were working. And as I pulled the lever, the front brake did work. But as I pulled it on more, suddenly it just let go and went straight back to the bar. Not in a way that you would expect if it was just spongy brakes or something like that. There's a definite click when it does it, and the whole thing just, so it works. You can't pull it in any harder. Then when you really try and pull it in, it suddenly clicks and goes completely loose and goes straight back to the bar. And then you can do that and there's no effect whatsoever. But as soon as you let go of it, it starts working again. So you can't replicate it here because it's all the fluid's all drained. It's not connected to anything. But that's what it was doing. So there's definitely something wrong. The clicking I was hearing appeared to be coming from this, and not from the calipers. So I'm thinking, I know he'd rebuilt this, or sorry, the chap I bought it from had rebuilt this. But I think we need to strip it and just find out what the situation with it is and see where we go from there. So let's make a start on that and see where we get to. So first off, let's get the lid off, and the lid should have a rubber seal in there, which it does. That looks pretty good to me. That could be new, possibly new. I don't think the lid's new, it's too scratched up, but it does look original. So okay, put that back in there, stop it getting bent up. And it looks in reasonable condition inside there. Nothing too bad. Screws look a little bit chewed up. But next job is to get those two screws undone in there, and then I think we should be able to lift this off. Not too bad. Okay, that plate is now loose in there. Get that out. There we go. Give that a bit of a wipe. Okay, I don't think that's handed, as in I don't think there's a special way that needs to go on. Looks pretty much the same on both sides. You can see where it's been pressed. The edges are rounded on there and very sharp on that side. So you can see the witness marks there where it was been screwed in that way round, so that's fine. That's easy enough to work out. Then that just leaves us with this plastic reservoir, which I think should now just prise off. Okay, they're out, so this should now pull off. That's very tight on there. There we go. Okay, so that's just the plastic reservoir. The only thing to note there is it has got a slight cut out there. Don't quite know what that's for. We'll work that out. We'll put it back together. So what does that leave us with? Should be a seal, I think, you know. So put a screwdriver in behind that. There we go. So that's everything out of there. Next is take the lever off and then remove the piston, etc. behind here. Again, we've got a chrome screw in here where I don't really think there should be a chrome screw, but otherwise it's been chromed, I think. But it's got the collar on it, so I think it's the correct screw. Hasn't got a nut and a washer on the other side though. Okay, that should just come out, which it does. Okay, what have we got here? Okay, next we've got a rubber boot over the piston, so I think that's got to come off next. Be careful not to damage it. There we go. Let's reshape that so it's not doesn't get stuck in that position. That's like a dust boot. And then right, so down in there, I don't know whether you can see that, but down in there, make sure I can line this up, is a circlip. So I need to get that circlip out of there next. That should allow us to bring the piston and everything out this way. Right, that's been about 2 seconds for you, about what felt like 2 hours to me. I think we're almost there. There we go, it's coming out now. There was a time when I was younger, I would have got really annoyed and frustrated at this. And part of me still does. At least I know now just to walk away from it. Go and have a cup of tea, and then come back and have another go. You could argue it just needs the right tools, and I suppose it does. But, you know, oh, there we go. Right. Okay, so that's that part of it. So what we've got there is our circlip. We have a washer. Then we've got our piston assembly with a sealing ring there. And that, I have to say, that all looks in pretty good condition. To be honest, I found nothing yet which points to why this was causing the problem it was. There should be some other parts in here. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we've got a spring which is tapered. I didn't notice which way it came out, unfortunately, although looking at the book it shows me which way it goes. So that came out that way with the thinner end on the outside, the thicker end going in. it shows a, what's it called, 13? A primary cup, which is this, which sits on there. And again, I think that looks okay. And then we should have something called a check valve. I don't know whether that's meant to be rubber or what. So 1975 to 1977 there was a check valve. Well, I can't see anything else in there and nothing else came out. So I wonder if that's where our problem is. There should be this check valve in there. Thinking that might be where the issue is there. Okay, so I think what we're going to have to do there, it's interesting it mentions 75 to 78, sorry, 75 to 77, so this is a 76, so it should be there, definitely should be there, and it isn't. It looks like a rubber piece to me that sits sort of on the inside of that spring, and that's clearly not there. So what we need to determine is how important that is. I presume it is important if they built it like that, and more to the point, does it come as part of the rebuild, a rebuild kit? Because if it does, we're going to need to get a rebuild kit, otherwise we're going to have to try and get hold of a new master brake cylinder. Anyway, I'll go and clean all these parts up and then we'll come back and move on to the next thing. Okay, we're going to turn our attention to the front brake calipers. These are pretty basic, to be honest. We've got one piston and we've got a movable mounting bracket, and as the piston is forced out, it moves the pad towards the disc, and the action of that forces this, which is holding that pad, inwards like that, and that allows that pad to put pressure on the disc from the other side. So it's pretty rudimentary as far as disc brakes go these days. Nothing complicated about it. The brakes were working when I took them off. They weren't binding. They were working. We've already covered the fact that there's definitely a problem with the master cylinder which we need to address, but these were actually working. So we just need to disassemble this from the point of view of cleaning it up, repainting it, getting it to look something like it should. I think this bracket that holds it onto the bike is the correct colour. I think they would have been painted like this, looking at the old pictures I've seen. Whether it was just bare alloy, whether it was painted, I don't know. These ones are painted by the looks of it. But I'll take a closer look at that when it comes to putting them back together. But for now, let's get them apart so we can get them stripped down. Other thing to mention is on the top here, you've got a little, I suppose you'd call it a sight glass if you like, or an inspection glass, which allows you to see down in there to see what the pads are doing, see whether they need changing or not. So that's going to need cleaning up or renewing as well, because it's all gone. You can't really see, it's gone frosted. Right, so manual says these two out first, so let's get on with that. Okay, this one is proving difficult to get out. I think we've now got that. Okay. Yep, that's properly corroded in, that one. This should now lift off. I could argue it looks like these should really take these apart, but the climbing manual says this is what to do. So we will follow the instructions. Lift the pad out, it says. Okay, so plenty of meat on that. That's all going to be cleaned up, which will be that. Yeah, these haven't been apart for a long time, have they? And then the other pad. Okay, that's simple enough. Yeah, because there's only one piston. There's no oil ways through these mating surfaces. So because of that, I suppose it's okay to take this apart like that. And I suppose it does mean that because we've only got one piston, we don't need to worry about that. So yeah, that makes life easier. Right, so what's next? Move the bolts holding the main support bracket, which is this. One of those is already out, and the other one there we go. Okay, so that's our main bracket off, and here you can see the, let me take one of those boots off. This is the pin that slides in and out, that allows this to, well, doesn't allow this to move backwards and forwards, allows the caliper body to move backwards and forwards, so you get pressure on pads both sides. And the manual says quite funnily, just pull the piston out. And of course pistons generally don't just pull out. Normally you need to use compressed air or something like that on these. Okay, so the next thing to do is to take off this snap ring. And then the seal comes off. Does seal. Like so. And that exposes our piston, which we can see in there, which is looking a bit cruddy. So these were working. It now says just pull the piston out. Well, the chances of you doing that are about zero, to be perfectly honest. The easiest way of getting these out is to apply some compressed air into this, and the easiest way of doing that is to take this union off, put your compressed air gun in there and just give it a puff of air, and this should pop out. So we're going to rebuild these anyway, because although I never really checked to see whether they're leaking. That all looks quite cruddy around there. So although they're not seized, for the cost of a piston rebuild kit, I think it's worth going ahead and doing that. Okay, so let's go ahead and see if we can get this out with some compressed air. That's that done. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a cloth around this. I'm going to put some compressed air into there, and that should force our piston out. What you can do if you haven't got any compressed air is you can try and grip this with something to pull it out, but then you've got a good chance of damaging the surfaces of this, which you really don't want to do, because when you put it back together you'll just rip your seals apart, and it'll be leaking all over the place. So we'll have a look at this piston when we get it out and see whether we need to renew that, but let's get it out for a start. Turn this over on the bench, put a cloth down so we're going to shoot this across the workshop, and then hopefully just a bit of compressed air. Oof, there it goes. Simple as that. And there we go. One piston, one caliper with our O-ring in there, which we'll be taking out in a bit. Okay, let's give this piston a clean up and just see what we've got. It's going to slightly clean it rather than that. Well, So cleaning rake's all relative. This one's pretty filthy as well. That'll give us a rough idea. These are meteor calipers, meteor pistons I mean. That's for sure. Okay. So I don't think these are too bad. I've seen them in a lot worse condition than this. There's slight amount of marking on there, but very, very little. I don't think we're going to need to replace those. I think they'll be fine. Yeah, so I don't think they were leaking anyway. I think just a very, very light rub up and down with some wet and dry just on that little area just there, and I think that's perfectly usable. I suspect they've been replaced in the past. They might even be stainless steel, those. Okay, that can go in the box. And then I don't know if you can see into there, but basically where is it? Yeah, there's a return hole. There's a bit of muck, a load of muck in there. There's a return hole down there. There's the inlet for the oil there, and then around the edge here we've got a black seal, and that's the part we're going to need to replace. Some of these pistons, some of these calipers have two rubber seals. This particular one just has the one, so it's usually quite easy just to get a little screwdriver in there and just prise those out. And then this can all be cleaned up in the shot blaster, making sure you get all the media out afterwards. There we go. Okay. Yeah, they're a bit. It's not the outside bit; it's the inside bit we're interested in. So that's the bit the piston bears on. That doesn't look too bad. But for what they cost, it's not worth reusing those. The important thing when you put these back together is that you make sure you clean out this groove here. This one's quite easy to get to, but some of them are very narrow, and they do get some crud in them behind the seal. And when you put the new seal in, you can get your piston in, but then your piston gets stuck because the seal's not going far enough back in the groove. So it's really important to get those grooves cleaned out properly. But this will go in the first of all in the go in the parts cleaner for a start. Then I'll put it in the shot blast, in the bead blaster, get it all shot blasted off, bead blasted off, whatever, and then it will go in the ultrasonic cleaner for a bit, and then we can think about repainting it and getting it to look like how it should have done. Okay, so next up is the rear caliper. I've got a confession to make with this, I'm afraid. When I took this off, I left this bolt hanging in there by a couple of threads. When I was taking the rear wheel out, I didn't realise it was twisting all of this. And I can see now, I don't think you're going to be able to see this, but you might be able to. Just there, where is it? That thread there is slightly bent over compared to the others, so I can't get this into there, and I'm afraid if I try and force it, I'm going to rip the thread out of there as well. So I don't have a suitable tap and die to run down this and put through here just to clear that out. And obviously this is quite a specialist bolt, so I need to try and repair this if I can. So I need to get the right tap and die. So to make sure I get the right tap and die, I've got to measure the diameter of these threads, or rather the diameter of the bolt itself, which in this case is, well, that's reading, oops, about 11.8, but this thing's notoriously poor at accuracy. So that's going to be an M12, that is. So on an M12, but then I've got to work out what the pitch of this thread is. And you have to be careful with particularly Japanese motorcycles, because they do quite often use different or finer thread pitches. So to measure the thread pitch, you need one of these, which is a thread pitch gauge. So we'll start, and this is just all different sizes of pitches of threads. And the idea is you just offer this up to the bolt. So let's start with, so that's a pitch of 1.75. So between the top of one tooth and the top of the next tooth is 1.75. So if we try that, that's just moving around, we can see that that's not even close. 1.5 looks a bit close. Let's try that. It's almost there, but not quite. So if we go to 1.25, okay, so that then sits in those threads absolutely perfectly. So we know that this bolt is M12 by 1.25. So that's the tap and the die set that I need to buy to rectify this silly problem that I've caused myself. But you know, these things happen, unfortunately. So let's get a box and we'll start taking this apart and putting the parts in it. So this is clearly different from the front calipers. There's meant to be a large inspection window or cover over here which is missing, so I'm going to need to source one of those. And this one is twin pistons, so we've got one piston here, one piston here. So this has been crudely hand painted as well by the looks of it, paint peeling off it where brake fluid's leaked onto it. So let's start taking this one apart and see what we've got. So I think if we were just changing the pads, we've got a couple of pins that seem to pull out here and here. Don't actually know what's holding those in, unless they're held in. Should be able to, I don't know what's holding those in. Anyway, it says to remove these two first, so we'll do that. See how we go. Okay, that's not going in there particularly well. Just give that a bit of a helping hand. Okay, bit of perseverance. Here she comes. Okay, I'm guessing this lifts off now with that piston. Gentle persuasion. Okay, so this one has got an oil way because there's no feed of oil to this piston here, but there is an O-ring and an oil way in there to feed oil, or brake fluid from this side to this side, which forces that out. So what we'll do is we'll take the rest of this apart, but then if we've got to get these pistons out, we may have to put this back together to force that one out, but we'll see how we go. So we've got the small plate to come off there, then our brake pads come off. Okay, push in there. Another pad, and another plate. And there's arrows on these, and I imagine they point towards the, that'll be the same rotation as the disc, I would imagine. We'll check that in the manual when we come to reassemble. And then looks like we've got snap rings again with boots on covering the pistons, so they need to come off next. There we go. Let's come off with the piston, with the dust cover I should say. And there's our crusty looking piston. Okay, and then we've got another snap ring on that side. Another dust cap or dust boot, and there's our piston in there. So here's where the fun starts, because we've got to get both of these out, but once one is out, we've then got the issue that we can't necessarily use compressed air to get the other one out, because obviously we're in a situation where the air will just come out of the chamber. So let's put it back together. Let's see what happens for a start. I suppose we could be lucky and both of them pop out, but I doubt it. We've still got the bleed screw in, so there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to push compressed air in there, and at least one of them will pop out. But again, what we're going to do is safety first and all that. So we're going to cover these up, because I really don't want these flying across the workshop or more to point up at me. Of our compressed air. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, well, one of them definitely come out. Let's have a look which one. Okay, so the one that's come out is one on this side, and the one on that side doesn't actually seem to move at all. Oh, actually, I think I managed to push that back in there. These don't look in quite so good condition as the front ones. Not too bad. Again, I think they might just clean up, and that's just a little bit of surface marking on there. Okay, right, so now we've got to try and get that one out. Which is going to be easier said than done, I think. Let's take this apart again. Yep, so that's the one that came out, and there's our seal in there. Let's get that seal out before we do anything else. That looks pretty good in there. I've seen a lot worse. Okay, so I think my plan at the moment is to use the compressed air technique again, but I'm going to put my finger over that hole, which hopefully will stop air coming out there, which will force that out. So I just need to keep my finger clear of that, because if that comes out at some speed and hits my finger, it's going to hurt. So let's just cover that up again. In fact, I'm going to put my finger over that hole while the cloth's on it. And now I can't reach my compressed air. Hang on. Let's try that again. Where's that hole gone? There it is. Let's try it. Oh, that sounded very much like it worked. Hey, there we are. So there's our other piston. And again, there's a little bit of surface marking on there, but there's not an awful lot of pitting or anything. That's really not that bad. Again, just a very fine emery cloth on there, and I think we'll be okay with that. That's good. So that leaves us with just that seal in there. That's our final seal once we've got that O-ring out. And that is everything disassembled. So it seems to me that these are fixed in place, which means you do have to split the caliper apart to change the disc pads, unless I'm completely missing the obvious. But when that is on there like that, and those pads have got holes rather than slots in them, and they're sat in there, unless there's a way of getting those pins out there, they can't possibly come off. Of course, things have modern calipers are much better designed these days, so you can do that sort of thing. But there's so much paint on this, I can't really tell. But it does look like that, because there doesn't look to be any method of holding that pin in. But then I can't understand why the pin appears to be sticking out this side. Okay, well, it's not a caliper design I've come across before. It's obviously quite old, from the early 1970s, early to mid 1970s. So we'll take it as it is. Right, I've just taken a closer look at the manual, because I'm confused about these pins. And it seems that this pressure spring sits in here and is responsible for holding these pins in place. So in fact, you can get the pads out to change them without having to take all this off. I thought it would have been an odd engineering decision at the time to have to take the whole caliper off and take the whole thing apart to take the pads out, and that's clearly not the case. Now I've looked at the manual. This sits in here and holds these in place. Once you've taken the cover off, actually I think that's probably might be the other way up, I'm not sure. But anyway, the point is that holds those in place. The reason I can't get these out at the moment is because they've been painted in. So I'm just going to need to knock those out. But basically the idea is that you take the cover off, you take that retaining spring out, and then or rather you move that retaining spring so you can get these out, and then you can get your pads out.